Welcome back to Listen Lissa. I am your host, Alyssa. Whew. And we are back in our summer days of recording, and it's going to be hot, and it's just starting, so. I certainly don't want that many different choices in the drop downs for dating options. That's obviously very silly, but there's a few more that I think could be added just based on the way things are going out there, you know? Like, there's some subcategories I've heard a few too many times, and somebody said they were single.
And
It's not really cool. I think some things you should have probably mentioned instead of just saying you were single. And that's crazy about today. It's kind of how the modern dating landscape is looking. You have to really verify. Did you mean single? Okay, but did you mean single? But today I do want to talk to you about modern dating, but I want to talk to you about a very specific part of it. I want to focus in primarily on what we've come to know as the situationship. Seems really lighthearted. It seems really fun, and it seems really just chill, just kick back, nothing serious, just a situationship. What is it? Sounds intriguing. It's just la la loopsy. It's just flying by the seat of your pants and not a care in the world. You don't have to worry about responsibilities to things and people and situationship. It's a situationship. It's like a great modern day solution to fear of commitment, right? You can't just jump into commitments. Back in the day, people would get married right after college. That was the way you do it. You go graduate, go to college, and then get married and have babies. That's what you're supposed to do, right? But there's so many other options now. And there's so many reasons not to do it that way. It doesn't make financial sense to do it that way right now. And most people aren't mature enough to do it that way, we've come to find out. And it seems that if you wait a little bit longer, studies are kind of showing that most people who go about getting married with intention, and they really wait for that till they're ready, have a lower divorce rate. So that seems great, okay? All for it. Somewhere it took quite a turn, okay? Somewhere we should have pumped the brakes on it, but it kept going, and it got a little out of hand. And so that's what I'm noticing around me. And so I decided to dive in and do the research and see if there were any studies that talked about how the modern dating landscape, and specifically what we know as the situationship, is affecting our mental health and what it has the potential to do if it keeps going in the direction it's going. So, what is a situationship? How did we get here? Why does it matter? What are they actually doing to us? And like I said, I mean that in a clinical, physiological, show you some research, show you some data kind of way. And give maybe a take that you haven't heard before on why a culture that has normalized the situationship is low-key a culture in crisis. Quite likely. So just stay with me, because I think this one matters based on the research. Let's get into it. Now, if this is your first time seeing me or you've been enjoying the channel, make sure you don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'm a big researcher, so I just dig into the research. I bring you my personal stories and I present the information to you and ask for your take on it too. So it's just a channel for us to talk about the data and relate over the things that we all experience out there in this lovely world. So hit that button, okay? All right. Now, the data, okay? When I was researching situationships, I thought the best place to start would be, let's look up stats on relationships, okay? So what I found was kind of crazy. 84% of dating app users say that they are hoping to find a serious relationship. So that's good news. Okay, so we all think the apps are kind of like garbage sometimes. We're like, ooh, hate the apps. Sometimes a lot of people are just it's tedious and we feel like everybody's just out there to hook up. The good news is that 84% of users say they are hoping to find something that is serious. 83% of Gen Z and millennials say they anticipate getting married at some point. Okay, so good. Now, 52% of Gen Z on dating apps say they are specifically only looking for a serious commitment. And that's the highest of any generation, apparently, so far that's ever been. So, okay, great. So the desire for love is not gone. The desire for real companionship and real commitment is not gone. Great. People still want it, pretty desperately, actually. And yet, 46% of Gen Z is currently single, compared to 28% of millennials, 26% of Gen X, and 22% of boomers at the same age. That's like a landslide we're going down. Over 50% of Americans aged 18 to 34 say that they have been in a situationship at some point. Okay, cool. One more stat I have here is only 29% of millennials and Gen Z were married in 2018, compared to 59% of 18 to 34-year-olds in 1978. So the question that I want you to ponder today, that I've been pondering, is this. If most of us still want lasting love and commitment, why does actually wanting it feel so embarrassing right now? Why has wanting a relationship become the thing that we whisper and avoid and act like we don't want? Why is it called catching feelings? And it just seems like because somewhere along the way, wanting love stopped being seen as just normal human stuff. It started being a red flag, you're clingy or something, you're too much. And I just think that shift has been one of the most devastating things to happen to this generation's mental health, possibly. Let's dive in further. What is a situationship exactly? We kind of need to define that, because you might be sitting there right now thinking
is what I'm in a situationship? Is that, does it qualify?
And you might not know. You might be unsure. And that confusion is actually exactly where the problem lies. Because a situationship is an undefined romantic or sexual relationship that can carry all of the emotional weight of a real relationship, a committed one. It can feel almost identical to one, or any range of levels below that, without the commitment or the clarity or any of the expectation for the communication of any of that. You spend lots of time together, probably. You are likely being physically intimate. You might talk every day, very frequently. Sometimes you even meet each other's friend groups, sometimes family. You feel something real, but if you had to be honest, you can't say you guys have ever really said what it is. You may have even asked what it is, and the person that you're doing it with may have kind of dodged the question or avoided it or said,
"We're just going with the flow,"
or something like that. There's a very obvious avoidance of a label. There's no defined future. There may be an exclusivity conversation, but highly likely that there wouldn't be, because most people that are creating these situationships, that's why they don't want to commit. I mean, let's be real. So there likely wouldn't be exclusivity included. It's going to be a low possibility for that. There's some maybe that do include that, and I'm going to get to the different levels. But the ones I'm talking about, the ones that are most common, those are happening because one person did think it was going to be something more, and the other person kind of let that be assumed. And it only became revealed that wasn't the case after bonds started to seemingly form from at least one side. And so then when it's discovered that those things are kind of shied away from or avoided, the person that's already feeling a little pretty bonded is in a dilemma. They have to go, okay, well, I've been getting close to this person, I've bonded with this person, and I guess we weren't on the same page. And that kind of hurts. And so in that situation, a lot of times that person will choose to wait it out and see where it goes. But this dynamic is set up this way because it's a particular type of person that is playing each of these roles. It's usually going to be a more anxiously attached partner that is the one that didn't want it to go this way and is kind of just rocking with it to see if it is going to develop into that. And then a more avoidant partner on the other end who is likely pretty sure, probably from jump, that that's what they wanted to be in, and likely has no timeline and no real plans to actually move this forward towards a commitment. So this is often a recipe that is set up for disaster. It ends up being a pretty painful dynamic most of the time, where one person feels like they never promised anything, and the other person feels like they were slighted, they were let on, they were not good enough, their time was just wasted. And they're then thrown into this also perpetual, constant anxiety and never really feeling secure in that connection from that point forward. This is not good for someone's mental health, period. And that effect that it's having is really important because it's that there's an unspoken MO to keep them that way for good. A situationship is most typically not just a relationship that's on its way to becoming a relationship. It's not going that direction. It's just that one person thought it was, and then they believe the person that is very ambiguous with what they're saying, and they want to hope for the best. That's what it is. It's someone incessantly hoping for it to turn into a relationship, and the other person just never putting that line in the sand, saying it's never going to be that. It's kind of like a carrot they're dangling,
maybe let's just take it slow. Let's take our time and get to know each other. Yeah, let's just take our time. Let's do this for a while. We want to be sure.
When they're never going to be sure, and they're not going to be just focusing on you. And that's how this gets turned into a catastrophe. Now, there can be situationships, obviously, where two people are on the same page from the beginning, and they're just both like,
yeah, I don't want this to be serious. I just want something casual.
And then they go into it at the same time with that knowledge. And that's perfectly fine. I don't think that is in any way harmful to either partner. I think that that's pretty healthy, and that can be fine. And that's not the type that is going to harm people. And also, there could be some people that are on the same page about well, yeah, we just like to take things slow, or they both are in agreement that they don't want to make it serious yet, and then it will develop into a relationship. That can happen. But these are the outliers, okay? These are not the common ways that situationships are going. What's common is the first dynamic that I explained, and it's getting more and more common out there. So for the person who holds all the power in that dynamic. They're already at their destination in the relationship, and they're just not being real with themselves or real with the person that they're in this with fully to make that known. It may be actually completely subconscious to them. They could really believe that each time they go into one of these situationships that they really are hoping for it to go somewhere while doing absolutely nothing that it would take for it to make it go there, or to get themselves ready for it to go there, or to put in the effort for it to go there. So it's the same outcome. They actually have no real dedication to a goal in mind. The ambiguity of it is not an accident at all. It's literally the entire arrangement, and it works well for them while hurting another person who doesn't see it that way. And we would all like to hope that we could say people who are creating that dynamic, who are bringing that ambiguity, would just freaking stop. That'd be great. But we know that won't happen, most likely. And so I just wanted to talk about this today and make it clear that that's something that people with any type of anxious attachment, anxious leaning attachment should really know is likely the case if that happens to you, because it's really hard to make a clear decision when someone has specifically made it their business to keep things very blurry and give you no estimated timeline on or any expectations about when that might change or where it's going. That just doesn't feel fair. This is a hellscape for people with an anxious attachment style, okay? Let me tell you, which is estimated to be somewhere between 11% and 20% of the adult population. And then while 23% to 25% have what we know as avoidant attachment. And then around 5% or even less have what they refer to as a disorganized attachment style or fearful avoidant attachment style. And then like 50-something% of the population is secure. Lucky dogs. You lucky. Okay, sorry, I'm jealous of secure people. A little bit. So fearful avoidance style, meaning that they both desire and fear closeness. What a catch-22. What a conundrum it is. As the attachment style that I have, yeah, it's crazy a little bit sometimes. So it's not just that they both desire and fear closeness, it's that they act on both of those things simultaneously. Okay, that's very confusing. And that's just based on their repeated experiences, just like all the attachment styles. So in a fearful avoidance repeated experience, they experience those two things always intertwined within the same person that they were receiving love from. So all of their sources of love and affection and closeness were also sources of pain, neglect, abuse, and rejection and abandonment. All three of these insecure attachment styles play a big role in the rise of the situationship. They really matter here. So think of it like this. Think of the anxious attached individual as the cling to it, smother it, beg for it, chase it, obsess over it, don't let it get away, that type of method. And then think of the avoidant attachment style as the flirt with it, pull it in, entertain it, run from it, stonewall it, blame it, resist it, reject it, brush it off, dismiss it, and abandon it method. All those fun ones. Then the fearful avoidant attachment, think of it as welcome it, open up to it, dance with it, suspect it, reject it when they want to embrace it, protect from it, run away while they still want it, and hope to be chased while performing avoidance. Yeah, that one. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated. Our subconscious thinking patterns and what we're communicating to the world without recognizing it cause us to attract and be attracted to what feels familiar to us. So oftentimes, a person with an anxious attachment style is going to attract people who are going to activate that trauma in them or invoke that reactivity, oftentimes to a level that we might say that would make anyone react that way. They're just that kind of person, and those are just those kind of behaviors, and that's a warranted reaction to something like that, which is what makes it really difficult for an anxiously attached person to sometimes take accountability for their attachment style and what it causes, because it's hard to see when you're attracting all the wrong partners that are provoking these reactions that are pretty warranted, just sometimes maybe extreme or unable for you to step out of and get your grounding again. But the truth of the matter is that if by chance happening, an anxiously attached person ended up in a relationship with a securely attached person, which happens once in a while, it happens sometimes, just not as common, they would very likely interpret non-threatening behavior as that same trigger to their anxiety and then react to it in that same destructive manner. That's the problem. It's hard for them to get to see that because most often they're attracting partners that are actually doing those things. So that's like just a mind F, you know? So here is where the situationship enters the playground, the arena, the arena. Yeah, here's where it enters, okay? All of our securely attached people, most of them, about 52 to 56% of the population, they're just like boop, 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 they pair up, okay? And they go off to la lovely land. Not really, but like, just pretend, okay? They're off, you know, flying with the doves, and they're just happy and in the land of milk and honey, and they're just in love, enjoying that. perfectly. No. So what's left? It's all of the insecure attached people. There's some outliers, some anxious people that ended up with secure, and then vice versa, whatever. But for the most part, the entire dating pool out there is mostly all of the insecurely attached people that are pairing up. And so the anxious attached people are drawn to the avoidant attached people. And a lot of the anxious people are out here like really wanting love, really trying to heal their attachment style, recognizing their patterns, working on them, but they can't get over that hill because such a strong influencer and trigger to their patterns and their reactivity is the avoidant and the avoidance behavior directly. So the dating pool is stocked full of avoidant attached people. Dun dun dun. And then they're pairing up with the anxious people who are just looking for love, just dying for it. That is when typically an avoidant will experience some failed commitments, sometimes decide that commitment just kind of goes wrong for them. They end up hurting people. They don't like that. They don't want to be the bad guy. So rather than having that light bulb come on, they just don't know it needs to come on, rather than getting some therapy and healing so that they don't have the desire to do the things that harm the people when they're committed. Instead, they just seek a setup that gets them all that same access to what they want out of a relationship, but eliminates them having any responsibility for anyone else's needs and feelings. And they don't just naturally see that as a problem because they are so hyper independent. That's one of the top traits of an avoidant attached person. And so they think,
I shouldn't have any responsibility for other people's feelings or needs or any of that. Anything going on with them. They should be just as independent as I am. We're just going to play it cool. We're just going to play it casual. And then no one's going to have any expectations. There's no responsibilities. It's just going to all be the fun, like only the good parts. That's all I want. I just want something casual. I just want something chill. I don't want to deal with all that other stuff.
And that sounds like really cool and great. It's just that it's not actually very possible because access goes hand in hand with responsibility. Almost always. Where in life do we see examples where access does not come along with inherent responsibility for something? Nowhere. It is possible, but typically in a situation where the absence of that responsibility has just been paid for, you know, like maybe through a company or like through someone that has been hired or something like that. But otherwise, somebody got to take care of that responsibility. When you're doing something like a partnership or a relationship, even if it's a situationship, when you have access, there's still going to be some level of responsibility needed. Without it, you don't form the bonds that are needed to even enjoy the access you want. So it just falls apart. The bad part of it is, though, for the avoidant attached partner, the things that make it fall apart, those things aren't really going to bother them too much at first or directly. It's more so going to be that it's going to really bother and affect the anxiously attached person. They're going to get less of their needs met in that situationship. And then their discomfort and their upset and the way that affects them naturally, their reactivity that's going to happen because of that, that is what is going to bother the avoidant attached person. There goes the cycle of the situationship that's going to plummet into the ground and blow up the world every time. So just think about it, okay? I'm not comparing anybody to animals, but like we're just going to make a little silly metaphor here, okay? Don't take it too seriously. What if you said,
you know what? I want to get a pet, but I just want to play with it. And I just want to like take cute little pics of it. I guess I'll feed it when I want to. When I feel like it, I'll feed it. But like, I don't want to feed it when I don't want to. I don't want to be like responsible if it like dies because I didn't feed it sometimes. Like it's just got to like figure that out. And like, I don't want to clean up its like waste. Ugh. That's disgusting. I'm not doing that. I just want that arrangement. I want a pet like that.
well, basically like tough freaking titties, buddy.
Got him!
Because it doesn't work like that. You can't do that. Those responsibilities come along with access to that pet. You got to do those parts too. So situationships are just like foundationally faulty. They are built on a premise that is bound to crumble every time. And so the thing is that like for the avoidant partner, that's like kind of okay. It's like not meant to last forever. It's for a good time, not a long time. It's temporary. But usually it involves another person who is usually an anxious partner, who is usually just settling for that because they are hoping, or they were led to believe, that it was going to develop into more. So they're going to be treating that situationship a lot like a relationship. And they're going to be meeting a lot of the avoidance needs all the time without that avoidant recognizing that. They're just like,
well, you just do whatever you want. You do that because you want to.
And then anytime the anxious partner needs something, the avoidant attached partner is going to be like,
I don't have to do that. That's not part of our agreement.
Anytime that they feel like they have to step outside of their comfort zone and do something that is more the anxious partner's wants or needs, never quite noticing that the entire relationship is centering around only themselves. It's a very selfish setup that doesn't serve both people. And none of this is across the board. This is just like the most common scenario, okay? Avoidance will make the mistake of thinking that physical needs are what everyone needs. So like everyone has different needs. Situationships are highly centered around physical intimacy and not so much emotional intimacy a lot of the time. Whereas that might sound great for an avoidant attached partner, and they might think,
well, we're both mutually getting physical intimacy and we don't have to do all that other crap that nobody wants to do.
But what they're not recognizing is that people have a range of needs, and that's not going to be the same fulfillment on both sides. So the person that they're having the situationship with, the anxious partner, might have some emotional needs or different ways of having intimacy that are more of a need for them. But to ask the avoidant partner to participate in that, the way the anxious partner is likely just going ahead and participating in certain acts, maybe of physical intimacy that are not their favorite or that they're doing for the avoidant partner. The avoidant partner is not going to see that as like, they should do that too. They should play this game with the anxious partner because that's something that fulfills them. Like, they're not going to see it that way. Also, avoidant partners' life kind of revolves around their work schedule a lot of times. So they're going to be really open to like saying,
come over at this time.
Anytime when they have a night off or the best time for them. But if the anxious partner's schedule is different and it would be more convenient for them to do this at a different time, maybe, anytime that they ask the avoidant partner to do that, it's going to be like,
no, I have work.
And it'll just be all on the anxious partner to sacrifice that for them and all around their schedule. So it always ends up being one-sided. And that's just not a mutually pleasing situationship. Now, furthermore, you might think that the situationship is harming mostly the anxious attached partner and keeping them in these long cycles of wasting their time, not being in an actual fulfilling long-term relationship. But the thing that avoidants also don't sometimes realize is that it's going to harm them too. Because a lot of avoidants that are participating in situationships right now, seemingly by their choice, by their design, they're doing so with this notion in the back of their mind that I'm just doing this for now. And when I'm ready and when I meet like the perfect right person, then I'll have a real relationship. For one, a lot of times the avoidants that are doing this, they are dating multiple people at once. So there is no exclusivity. To make that happen, a lot of times, the only way to make that happen is to lie. So they're lying to these people. They're possibly putting people at risk for the transmission of STDs, STIs, if they're lying and not protecting themselves the way they most likely would be if the other partner knew that was happening. So that's really risky and really messed up. And even if they're telling the truth, it's really difficult to cultivate an actual bond with someone, to put in all of the effort and the focused time and all of that to build that bond when you're splitting your time with multiple other people. So when avoidant, when are you going to make this beautiful relationship that you're thinking is going to pop out of nowhere by fate and finally be the right one? Because there's another side to that too. All the ones that could be the right one, that have all the actual qualities that could be the right one, those are the ones that are going to trigger the avoidance. Okay, those are the ones that are going to make the avoidant be like, no, there's got to be something wrong with this person. They're making me feel really infringed upon. And I feel really like they're trying to control me. Like just regular relationship boundaries, doing things that would be normal in a relationship. Like if someone does something that you don't like, you would speak up about that, have a conversation. You would want to talk about it. Or if somebody just goes MIA for a bit or something and you're just like,
hey, can you just communicate with me so that I know what's going on? Like, don't just leave me hanging. Just say, hey, I'm gonna go do something for a bit, but I'll text you tomorrow or something like that.
A request such as that is going to trigger avoidance when that's a very perfectly reasonable, healthy relationship, even casual relationship expectation to set, or to expect exclusivity. I mean, in today's world, how can you, I don't know how you can really get around not having exclusivity when you're being physically intimate, unless you're being very safe. And you have to let people know these things. And a lot of times that's going to eliminate quite a few people from your options because they don't want something where someone's sleeping around, dating around. A lot of people don't like that. Okay, so a lot of people just lie. All right, so that's going on a lot with these situationships. And then, like I said, so all the people that are going to have maybe the actual qualities and actually be the right people for the avoidant, they're going to feel like the wrong people. And so as soon as they feel their avoidance triggered, a coping mechanism for that, naturally, subconsciously, is to flaw find. So then they will start seeing everything that person's doing as a flaw. And then they'll start noticing every little thing about them that they actually don't like. And it just like kind of, it like warps them in their mind into someone that they don't have any attraction for. They want to push away. They're just like, ew. It's like a repellent. When they're like, they're just being normal. Like they're just being a normal person asking for normal things with normal feelings. This can be triggering for the avoidant if it feels like pressure, if it feels like control. And then that's also really hurtful if it is an anxiously attached person, because that's going to then trigger their anxiety. And then it's going to trigger them to cling. It's going to trigger them to be afraid of abandonment and, you know, all of that. It's just going to be, it's like a recipe for disaster. So if all the right people are getting viewed through the avoidance subconscious mind as the wrong people, the only time they see people as the right people are when they are emotionally or physically unobtainable to them. So the mind will do that same thing. It will subconsciously convince the avoidant that that's that perfect person because they are just somehow slightly out of reach or unobtainable to them. So anyone that for some reason they actually cannot have, whether it's because that person's not attracted to them, or that person is like they're just friends or something, like that person doesn't want to be with them, or that person already has somebody else, or whatever the case may be, that person lives far away, whatever the barrier is that makes that person feel safe, because they can actually never have them, so they don't feel that fear of intimacy. They don't get those triggers because their subconscious knows it's safe. That's never going to happen. They start to like idolize that person, and that person feels like the perfect person. But that person only feels that way because you can never have them, so it's safe. So that's still part of the avoidance. It's all part of that avoidance cycle. So this idea in the back of their head that they're going to find the perfect person, and that's when they'll be ready to make that commitment, and it's going to become down the line someday, and they can just do this for now. It's a facade. Their mind is tricking them. Their cognitive dissonance is in the way, and it's not going to happen that way. You can't go your whole life conditioning yourself to this pattern of non-commitment and then just expect to like meet someone one day and just hop right into a commitment, like bada boom. No, you got to heal whatever's going on. That's why it's going to hurt them too. And they don't usually see this as often as the anxious partner does. So working on these things and moving away from the situationship model for our society is helpful and enriches the lives positively of both anxious and avoidant. How did we get here to where it is the really highly prevalent model of relationships of modern times? Well, they didn't just appear out of nowhere. Obviously, we definitely built the conditions for them over decades. And it's important to understand how we got here to give us a possibility of knowing how to get back out of here. So let's just think about the early 2000s, okay? What was going on then? And that was the rise of what we know as the hookup culture. In college campuses is where we saw it originate, the pickup artists. So there were these shows where these guys were teaching other guys how to go around and pick up girls. You know, for hookups, basically, not for real relationships, just to like get girls.
8 ordinary men. Each has conquered some of the most difficult challenges of manhood. Puberty, driving. For them, it's a puzzle they can't solve.
Oh my God.
You need to be coached. Just like I have a boxing trainer, just like I got taught how to break down.
I'm the 40-year-old virgin plus 5 years.
Meet the world's most successful pickup artist. A man who goes by only one name.
Mystery.
Now, Mystery has recruited 2 former students, J-Dog and Matador, to be his wingmen as he faces his biggest challenge yet.
And so when this was really like rising in prominence amongst the men of that generation and of that time, hookup culture was being formed and growing. And so it was really pushed upon young women of that same age group in that time period that wanting something serious was like yuck. That was like making you look clingy. You look desperate. The better thing to do is play it cool. You have to play it cool. You can't ever seem like you like want something. That's weird. That's a turnoff. So the goal was to want as little as possible so that you seem very desirable. Okay? So women were supposed to perform as though they just didn't want anything. They're unbothered. They don't care. You know, it's like they're whatever.
I don't want a relationship. I'm cool with whatever.
And I know that this is accurate because I remember it. I lived it. I know that. And because it's like before I even knew that I was doing something weird, before I ever figured that out, I used to do that. I totally did that. I felt like I could never say that I wanted a relationship. I had to act like I was cool with whatever. And I didn't know why. I didn't even know why I was doing it. I just was. And then it's crazy because when I look back, I think about some instances where, why would you ever do that? It just led to such confusion. It led to such weird outcomes that you're like upset that it went that way, but you're like, okay, well, that's exactly what that would lead to, though. Like, that makes sense why you weren't on the same page. That makes sense why that went that way. Like, hello. There was one time that I was seeing this person and they never said that they wanted something serious. I acted like I was cool with it, whatever. And after dating for a while, and then it started to kind of like fizzle out, I remember getting kind of frustrated with it and like wondering why it was going that way, and then getting kind of like mad about it. And at the end of it, he was just kind of like,
I said that I wasn't really looking for anything serious. I mean, I told you at the very beginning.
and I thought in my head, like,
Yeah, but I thought it was gonna just happen. Like, I thought, you know, like, we acted like we were together after that. So then, like, I just thought you were gonna fall in love with me. I don't know.
and I remember being so butthurt about it and thinking like,
Why would you do that?
having my feelings hurt. But then as I matured and I really thought about that a little bit more over the next few years, I was like, of course. Like, duh. He literally said that from the very beginning. He actually did not do anything wrong. I was the one faking. Like, I definitely wanted it to go somewhere, and I just acted like I didn't. So how the hell was he supposed to know that? And it went exactly where we both stated we thought it was going to go. So why was I mad at him? That made no sense. But that's what that time period was teaching us to do. It was like offensive. It was like embarrassing to say you wanted a relationship, that you wanted something serious. Neither person wanted to be the first one to really say that. It was crazy. It's like reverse some type of like hopeful reverse psychology or something. It didn't go well ever. So that was already a problem, okay? But then came the apps. Ew. Tinder launched in 2012, and then something fundamental really shifted. Because now relationships weren't just something that could happen between two people that existed in the same space at any given time, like based on coincidence or fate or whatever. They became something that you could browse with like lots of options. How exciting. And you could just swiping all day. So many choices, so many people to choose from. You could always keep another option loading in the background, which meant commitment started to feel like a risk. The risk of closing a tab that you might want to open back up later. Did you check that tab well enough? Were there other tabs? The birth of FOMO, fear of missing out. Really difficult when you have so many options to make a choice. They could be a better person if you just swipe 3 more times. This person could be perfectly wonderful for you, but you're like,
What if I could do better?
always, perpetually. That's not good for commitment. When you have so many options, defining what you have with someone starts to actually feel like losing everything else. So people just stopped defining things. It seemed a lot more comfortable. It seemed like looking out for your best interest. Everybody just started kind of like seeing where it goes. With everybody, with a lot of people, kind of indefinitely. And the data on this is really striking, okay? Because Tinder reported that the term situationship appeared on 49% more user profiles just from January to October of 2022 alone. It jumped 49% that year, naming it the top dating trend of that year. And 1 in 10 young adults aged 18 to 25 told Tinder that they actively prefer situationships as a way to develop a relationship with less pressure. And like I said, oftentimes that's not true. That's not typically what's actually happening. They don't tend to be something that's just going to turn into a relationship. It's not a pre-relationship. It's like one that's masquerading around like a relationship, and it's never going to actually be one. So they're kind of like lying to themselves or each other. I don't know. Most of the time. So then social media just poured gasoline on this. Okay, because now you could build an entire persona around just not needing anyone. It became super cool. It became such a trend. It became like a mental health like model. The lone wolf aesthetic, the independent person.
I'm doing me. I'm focused on me. I don't need anyone but me. I love me. I'm self-developing. You never have to worry about anything as long as you've got yourself.
We quite literally need other people. We're a species that does not survive well all on their own. We do terrible in isolation. It's not true. Like, I don't know why that happened, but I think it was a coping mechanism for what this era brought upon us. So this is the version of self-sufficiency that looks like growth, but is really just the performance of not caring. It's really just a coping mechanism. It's really just a protective measure. It's really just going like,
Well, this is what's like happening. I'm having all these struggles in the dating world, and I'm like having a hard time navigating all of this, and I don't like getting my heart broken, and this keeps happening to me. So here, I'm going to make this something that I actually wanted. I'm going to make this actually what's like the thing that people are supposed to strive for. I'm going to make this cool. This independent, soul-sufficient, I don't need anybody, match their energy. I only give what I get. I give whatever you get.
like all this crap we hear, okay? Which in some context is actually great, but it can go overboard, and it has definitely aided in this whole thing. because that became aspirational. And then wanting a relationship became like kind of lame. You're kind of lame if you want that. People would be like,
You need to heal. Like, you need to be okay with yourself first. You need to love yourself all the way. You need to be 100% healed.
someone's just like,
I would just really like to have a relationship.
Like, my gosh, you need to go to therapy. Like, you need to heal. You need to be okay with you being by yourself. That's really weird. That's not healthy.
it's like it's the absolute most healthy thing ever. Like, that's just so human. You absolutely should want to be in a relationship with someone, you know? That's wild. So by 2023, situationship was actually named one of the words of the year. Search interest had exploded about this word. And we finally had a name for something, officially, that had been happening to people for actually quite a long time, which is good because naming something does matter. But the flip side is naming it also then helped to normalize it. And I'm not sure we thought that through, like what it really means to normalize something that's genuinely hurting people and eventually society if it goes too far. So the through line of this is the apps gave us options, too many. Then the options created or compounded avoidance. And then that avoidance got rebranded as freedom and growth and positive mental health. And then freedom and that desire for that became justification for just never having to be accountable for another person's feelings or their heart. So that's the pipeline, and we're all living downstream from it. There are 5 main contributing factors. So number 1, the paradox of choice. So dating apps didn't just change how we meet people. They also subtly and subconsciously changed how we value people. I don't know if you've ever gone through a time period of being single for like a long stint and you were participating in dating apps maybe. And it just kind of got to the point where it was like, you forgot like that you were shuffling people for a while. Like you're just like swiping. It's like they were game cards. You're like, And you started like not seeing the people that were in your inbox or whatever as a real individual that you're talking to on the other side. It was so easy to just ignore somebody or brush somebody off or start a conversation and then never come back to it. It's so simple to do that. So common, so easy. They're just a click on a computer. So that's dangerous. Any level of dehumanization is harmful to the human brain and just not good practice, even if it's just on this small level. Not good. You always want to shy away from something like that. That's going to have a negative impact on people. When you have an infinite scroll of potential partners, committing to one starts to feel actually insane. It starts to feel kind of like irrational and illogical. Why would you do that? You must be crazy to do that. What if someone better is just a few more swipes down? That fear of missing out does not disappear when you find someone good or even great. That's the subtle conditioning that's happening. Sometimes it just goes quiet for a while. And that quiet is where the situationship lives. Because while that all those good feelings are coming through, you know, the like honeymoon stage, you're going to be sitting pretty in that situationship where you know you always have a way out so easily. And then when that first problem arises that you don't have any logical reason, you feel, to put up with, bye, back to the apps. Where all my more options are, where I can find somebody better forever and ever and ever and ever. You're never going to like focus in and actually care about working through things with somebody. You're not going to learn conflict resolution. You're not going to learn to face your triggers, your traumas. You're not going to learn that it's normal to have conflict and that you have to learn how to sit in it and you have to learn how to get through it with somebody. You're just going to run away every time because you have all these options in your mind. You have so many more options. You're tired of this one. That's why situationships are so convenient for that. So another statistic here, 37% of current dating app users say they are looking for both a serious and casual relationship simultaneously, whichever one they come across, keeping their options open by design. They're just already in that pattern. Second contributing factor, avoidant attachment and their fear of vulnerability specifically. So as I said, a significant portion of people operating in situationships are doing so from an avoidant attachment pattern. Avoidant attachment often develops from early experiences of emotional unavailability, abandonment, or a type of like conditional love from caregivers in childhood. For an avoidant person, closeness and depending on that feels very dangerous, feels very unsafe, and feels very smothering. Commitment itself often feels like a big old trap. So for people that feel this way, a situationship is the perfect structure and solution to that. Because it allows intimacy without all that vulnerability on the line of like actually being chosen and actually making a decision that they have to stick by and work through, which feels like near death to them. Like they feel like their life is being threatened, almost. Some more statistics here. 56% of Gen Z Hinge users say fear of rejection caused them to stop pursuing a relationship that they wanted. Okay, so there's that fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, actually stopping them from pursuing commitment. And then 57% admitted that they had held back confessing their feelings for fear that it would be a turnoff. So this is happening for sure. This is still happening often, okay? Now, third main contributing factor is prior relational trauma. Somebody broke your heart real bad. Somebody hurt you real bad. Somebody betrayed you. Somebody abused you. This is one of the big contributors to people wanting to just be in situationships. They don't want to get stuck in something again where they can get their heart obliterated. And why that is because heartbreak and betrayal and things like that, they don't just hurt in that moment. They actually restructure how safe or not safe feels to the people that have experienced that. Someone who has been left, cheated on, or just like consistently disappointed by someone they loved or multiple people that they loved will often arrive at,
I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not putting myself in that position. Situationships all the way.
oftentimes not as a choice even, but more as like a defense. Like they're terrified. They actually cannot get past their fear and even try for a commitment again because they are terrified of how low it brought them and what it took from them that they may never have actually healed afterwards. So they feel like
If I never define this, then I can't ever lose it that same way.
it feels like self-protection, but it's really just self-isolation. And people do this all the time. It's a method of regaining control. When something happened to you that you tried everything possible within you, you cared so much about it, you did everything. It really affected your life. It might have caused negative impacts that changed you as a person. It may have taken parts of your personality and actually shifted them or taken little pieces out of you that are just never the same again and made life look different to you. The world might look different to you now and not in always a positive way. And those things hurt so bad. Those are like the most painful parts of life, honestly. Bad, painful stuff emotionally. And so sometimes it just feels so much more safe when you're like,
If you can't beat them, join them. No one can reject me if I already don't want that. If I reject that already, how can anyone ever reject me? I'll just be the rejector. Then I'm safe.
people do this a lot. And that is how a lot of anxious attached people end up in voluntary situationships where they're like,
Yeah, that's all I want.
deep down, they would want commitment so badly if they could trust it. But then they end up in situationships with avoidant attached partners. And then that relationship just further reinforces that relationships are not going to be successful. And the cycle just goes on and on. It gets worse. So more than 40% of millennials cite fear of repeating their parents' divorces as a reason for delaying or avoiding marriage. So patterns that you're seeing in relationships when you're a child, especially in your caregivers, could be a big influential factor on whether or not you believe in commitment. You think it can be successful. And remember, our beliefs inspire our thoughts. Our thoughts inspire our words and actions and then influence our environment. The environment around us then reacts to what we're putting out there, and then that reinforces the original belief. You're going to see around you in your reality what you already believed, what you think is true. Where do those beliefs come from? Childhood and what you saw repeatedly. What got programmed into our subconscious mind, and those are operating on autopilot all the time. So you got to figure out what those are. And avoidant attached partners have certain ones that are more common and in that group, and then same with anxious. Same fearful avoidant. You just have to figure out what yours are. And then you have to reprogram your subconscious mind. You have to change your beliefs. You can't just say,
I'm not going to believe like that. I'm going to start thinking a different way.
no. It's not in your conscious mind. It's in your subconscious mind. And there's a totally different language that speaks and a totally different way to change those thoughts. You cannot just change them by saying, I'm going to think a different way. You can't do it. It will never happen. Your conscious mind can never, ever overpower your subconscious. And I have some videos that actually give you a step-by-step method, tried and true, of how to reprogram your subconscious mind. So you might want to check that out too, if you think you're ready for that. It's like literally the secret to life. I'm not even playing with you. All right, let's move forward. Number 4, main contributing factor, financial pressure and delayed milestones. A huge portion of delayed commitment we're seeing isn't just like purely emotional and a result of the way that we're operating on dating apps. It's also economic. So people literally can't afford to get married or hit the like common milestones that people of previous generations did. It's just not the same. It's not possible anymore. They can't afford to move out. They can't afford to buy a home at the same times. And they just don't feel stable enough to be ready to start life with someone. It's happening way later because of the economy. So 73% of Gen Z and millennials say marriage feels too expensive in the current economy. That's a huge portion, huge. And then more than half of Gen Z, 55%, and millennials, 52%, say that they are actively delaying major life decisions, including marriage, due to financial strain. And that's according to the 2026 Deloitte Global Survey. I hope I said that right. Deloitte, yeah. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're struggling all the time. You're having to live with multiple roommates and still paying an enormous rent for one room or something like that. You're having to live with family because the prices are out of this world. The economy is just crap. And that doesn't cultivate an environment for a lot of getting close to somebody or relationships to progress to that level. A situationship fits into that space a lot better. So makes sense. Number 5. Major contributing factor is social normalization and cultural messaging. When everyone around you is in a situationship, when the content you consume treats commitment like it's like naive or some traditional antiquated thing of the past, when your friends normalize undefined relationships, your baseline is going to shift. What was once considered a big red flag starts to feel like,
well, that's just how people are now. That's just how things work now. You gotta put up with some of it.
The social proof element is real, and it does a lot of quiet damage here. 20% of millennials say their goal in life is to be single without children, and they have no interest in changing that. Okay, up to now, you might be just saying like,
okay, you're just like obviously very traditional and you just like hate on situationships. People can have whatever relationship types they want. It's not like a crisis. You're just being very dramatic.
But now, let me tell you why this is a societal crisis, because I haven't really gotten there yet so much, besides like how it makes anxious people really sad. So everything we've covered so far is what situationships do to the individual. But now I want to talk about what they do to us as a society. Because when situationships become the dominant relationship model for an entire generation, the consequences of that don't just stay inside whatever relationship we're looking at. They ripple out into families and communities, into the children of the next generation who are watching us navigate this in real time. So now here are 5 ways a society drowning in situationships is a society in serious trouble. First reason, it is collapsing the foundation that families are built on. So baby boomers are my parents' generation, had a marriage rate of 48%. Gen X came in at 36, millennials are at 26, and that's nearly a 50% drop across just 2 generations. Only 44% of millennials were married in 2019, compared to 53% of Gen Xers and 61% of boomers, and 81% of the silent generation at the same age. And that's from Pew Research. Marriage rates overall have declined 60% over the last 50 years. And that's from the National Center for Family and Marriage Research. Okay? A quarter of American 40-year-olds have never been married, compared to just 6% in the 1980s. That's also from Pew Research. And here is the contradiction, though, that should be like blazing. People still want this, though. People still want commitment. People still want marriage. That's what they're reporting. 83% of Gen Z and millennials still say they plan to get married. Only 8% think marriage is fully outdated. So the desire has not disappeared. Apparently, there's a different reason. The path has become obstructed somehow, or something's going wrong. We're not acting on what we say we want. That's really sad. And it's been obstructed by ambiguity, avoidance, and the normalization of relationships that refuse to be labeled and real. Number 2, it is producing more single-parent households, and children are bearing that cost. So the share of children living with both married biological parents has dropped from over 85% in the 1950s to about 65% today. So when committed becomes optional and relationships just stay undefined, the people who end up holding the consequences are often children born inside that ambiguity. Because remember, situationships, they still getting it in. Okay, so children are born oftentimes in that undefined, up in the air jargon. Okay, and that's crazy. Like a child's life isn't going to pause while 2 adults figure out when they're going to be ready for commitment. And this is not about judgment. There's nothing against single parents. I'm a single parent. I've been my whole life mostly. The biggest portion of my children's life, I was a single mother. So not judging at all. That's not the point. It's just that it tends to be a better outcome when you can have your family all together. Most people want that. For those who don't, fine. But I don't think most of the people that don't have it that way were trying to be single parents. Some people are, that's fine, whatever. But it is about what research consistently shows, okay, in terms of outcomes for children. So in terms of education, financial stability, and emotional templates that they carry into their own adult relationships, the situationship isn't just hurting the people that are in it, the adults that are in it. It's shaping the attachment patterns of the next generation being raised inside of it. When relationships all fall apart and they're all ambiguous and they're all unnamed, I mean, what are we even doing? We're all just turning into like blobs of nothing that name nothing and do nothing. It's crazy. Can't do that. All right, number 3. It's rewiring how an entire generation understands commitment. When the dominant relationship experience of a generation is ambiguity, when most people's romantic history is just a series of things that never meant really very much and never got defined, never got honored, never got named anything, commitment starts to not just feel scary, it starts to feel absolutely foreign and impossible, like a language you were never taught, or like this fantasy thing that doesn't happen, you know, the thing in the movies. And what tends to happen when people stop believing that something can happen for them, they stop asking for it, they stop looking for it, they start performing like they don't even want it. Because wanting something you absolutely can never have is like one of the most painful positions to exist in. So people adapt. People convince themselves they don't need that. They don't even want that. But that is not healing. That's just adaptation. And a society full of people who have adapted away from their own need for deep connection, which is a human need that we absolutely do have, already has a word for what it becomes. And the US Surgeon General declared a national loneliness epidemic. And that was because 8 in 10 Gen Z adults report experiencing loneliness. That is the highest of any generation. That's just like alarming. 8 in 10. All right, number 4. It's actually fueling a chronic health crisis, particularly in women. And I'm not playing with you, there's data, okay? And I'm gonna get into this in full detail in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to put it here as a societal crisis as well, because it is one. The anxiety that situationships produce is not just emotional discomfort. It's not just people being sensitive. It is a physiological state that, when sustained over months and years, disrupts every single system in the human body. And it is disproportionately affecting women. Okay, number 5. It's glamorizing disconnection as personal growth. This one feels like maybe like the most insidious one. We've been sold the idea that needing people is weakness, when it's literally one of the most human things possible, like human things out there. It's quite literally programmed into our being. We've been told that wanting a relationship means
You haven't done enough work on yourself.
And so an entire generation is performing detachment or yearning to be able to have detachment because they don't want to hurt anymore. In these stupid situationships they didn't know they were in until they were hurt by them. And then they're like,
I just want to feel detachment.
they're going and studying and reading books about how to detach because they don't actually feel that way. It's just that the culture told them that vulnerability is embarrassing and wanting love is a personal flaw and it feels weak, and then they get hurt. They don't want to be that way. When disconnection becomes the aspiration, you're not going to get a society of whole and healed people. You're going to get a society of lonely, isolated little increments of people all over the place that are completely disconnected from each other. People who are just very good at pretending that they're fine. And isolated people don't build communities. They don't make families. They don't produce children, usually, and they don't show up for each other in the ways that hold a society together. I feel like we are all unlearning skills of how to connect and bond. And I just truly feel like this is a crisis. All right, but let's now jump into the mental health, because I think this is the probably most important part. Let's talk about what the research says. And there is a very well-researched why this hurts people. So, studies published through ResearchGate and the International Journal of Indian Psychology found that people in ambiguous relationships consistently report higher levels of stress and emotional instability than people in defined partnerships. Not slightly higher, significantly higher, okay? That's an important part. Not a little bit, a lot, a ton, way higher. And that makes sense when you think about what ambiguity does to the brain. Our nervous system is designed to assess situations and then reach conclusions based on what it's seen before. There's neural pathways, and it learns to read patterns, and that's how we have quick reactions to things. That's how we know when to have an adrenaline rush to get us through a really stressful time, something that's going to be difficult or challenging. That's how people can jump out of the way of a car that's coming before they even thought about it. It's because of that. That's how our nervous system is taught to respond. It's to keep us safe. It scans for patterns, it gathers information, and then it makes a call. Threat or no threat. Safe or not safe. But a situationship just doesn't let it do that. The information never comes. There is no answer. There's never full clarity until the end. And then it's disappointing. It's just a forever maybe until it's a devastating no. Your nervous system can't rest on a maybe. So guess what it does? And I am very familiar with this as a fearful avoidant because this happens with a lot of things. It just stays activated. It just stays in that heightened level all the time. That's not supposed to be that way. And in situationships, it just keeps waiting for a resolution, hoping for a resolution, needing for a resolution that the other person has already, maybe, most likely, decided is never the goal and is never coming. And they may have been honest about that or not. Who knows? It ranges. That state of constant scanning, that's anxiety. And so for people who already have anxious attachment patterns, which, I mean, if you've moved through a string of these situationships that you didn't actually technically want to be in as a situationship, you probably do at this point. You probably have a lot of anxiety at this point. Situationships don't just trigger anxiety. They also reinforce it. They deepen it. They actually teach your nervous system that this is just what relationships feel like. This is just the way we're going to be all the time. They train it that uncertainty is going to be the baseline and that you have to actually earn consistency, that you have to be worthy enough for consistency, that you have to be good enough for consistency. And that rewiring doesn't stay inside the relationship. It follows you out of it. This was an interesting statistic. 77% of Gen Z say that they have ghosted someone. 84% of Gen Z and millennials report having been ghosted, and 10% after several months of involvement. That's terrible. That's the worst. And that was in a 2023 survey. So every undefined relationship that you move through without resolution, it's not just a situationship. It's like a reinforcement in your belief system about what you're worth and what's even available to you. And that makes romanticizing this like gray area really kind of nasty. And I hate it. All right, the connecting piece. Okay, we're going to talk about the anxiety to illness pipeline. Stay with me for this part, okay? This is where the conversation really stops being about feelings and about your body. So we know that situationships produce anxiety. Duh. Which is crazy because the people that are designing them and wanting them to be that way are literally just like wanting something
Chill, no anxiety. Chill.
They're like quite literally stressing the out of the other person, their entire nervous system, just like turning every system in their body to hell. It's really nice. This is studied, absolutely clinical. So I want to trace what happens when that anxiety doesn't resolve, when it's not just like one bad week, when it's that chronic, low-grade, perpetual uncertainty of being in that relationship with no definition, no timeline, no guarantee for months, sometimes years, sometimes back to back. Maybe that's the only relationship you ever experience. Wouldn't be rare now. Here's what's actually happening to you inside. Your brain perceives ambiguity as a threat. That's not metaphorical. That's literal. The hypothalamus triggers the release of cortisol. That's your stress hormone. Cortisol is useful in short bursts. It's what gives you focus and energy to handle a real emergency, like I said. But cortisol was never designed to run continuously. It was designed to spike, do its job, and then come back down once the threat is gone. The problem with the situationship is that the threat is never gone until you're out of the situationship. It never resolves. It never got fixed. It's up in the air forever. This forever thing that you can never fix because you wasted months or years in something that was always going to be undefined. And you didn't find out until it was over. Sometimes. The thing that's causing the stress, the uncertainty, the inconsistency, the never knowing, that hope. All of that just never resolves until it's already just gone. So your cortisol does not come back down. It just stays elevated day after day while you hope and you long and you wish, your body idling at high alert, just waiting forever on a resolution that's never coming. And here's what chronically elevated cortisol does over time. And this is according to research from Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic. Long-term stress response activation disrupts nearly every system in the body, contributing to high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke risk, digestive disorders, immune suppression, chronic inflammation, sleep disruption, weight changes, depression, and anxiety disorders. But here's where it gets a little specific to women. And honestly, this is what made me want to do this research initially. Although I'm very adamant that situationships harm everyone, not just women. But this is just a little particular piece of the data about women, okay? And I thought this was very interesting. So research published in Frontiers and Endocrinology found that for women, medium to high chronic stress directly predicted depression and anxiety symptoms in ways that did not occur at low stress levels. So how much stress you're getting does matter, and a situationship delivers a sustained high dose. And then a 2024 UCSF study found that women experiencing depression showed significantly higher average cortisol levels throughout the day, establishing a direct physiological link between chronic relational stress and hormonal dysregulation. In a study of 130 women, those experiencing sustained relational uncertainty, so an undefined relationship, and emotional instability showed measurably elevated cortisol stress response compared to controls, with significantly lower quality of life scores across all domains. Guys, situationships are killing the women. They're destroying women. Situationships are just destroying women and men. But like women really prominently and like really like physically in a very tangible way. So what does that mean in plain terms? That means a woman who spends 6 months, a year, 2 years into a situationship, in that constant state of low-grade anxiety and hypervigilance, she's not just going to be emotionally drained or scarred. She's going to be physiologically taxed. Her immune system is going to be working harder. Her cardiovascular system, her hormonal balance is going to be disrupted. She might go to the doctor for headaches, for some digestive problems, for more fatigue, that she just can't explain, for anxiety that just seems to come out of nowhere, from nowhere, on any regular day. And that doctor might run every test and just find nothing, because the thing making her sick does not show up on tests like that. It doesn't show up on a blood panel. It shows up in her text messages at 2 a.m. that say, "You up?" from the guy she hasn't heard from in 2 weeks, who promised to do better.
Embarrassing.
Sorry, that was really corny, sorry. Okay, but that is what our culture is normalizing. And data is showing that it's very hurtful to a really large part of the population. And then more indirectly, and later on down the line, to all of us in a million ways. Let's talk about what the death of commitment would look like for marriage and families and what we're actually losing here. So if we compare marriage rates at the different generations at the same age, the silent generation, 81% were married, 61% for baby boomers. Gen X was 53%, and then millennials, 44%. Only a 26% overall marriage rate for millennials, and that's the lowest on record. Gen Z projections, only 58% of Gen Z women and 56% of Gen Z men are expected to ever marry. And that's from the Marriage Foundation, 2024. Now, let's look at divorce. This part was a little surprising. So baby boomers who married very young, they actually have the highest divorce rate of any generation. So peaking near 40%. And gray divorce, I guess it's called. I never heard that before. But that means that having a divorce over 50 has literally doubled since the 1990s among boomers. By 2021, more than a third of all divorces in the US involved someone that was 55 or older. Fun fact. I didn't know that. But millennials, despite marrying less, those who do marry are divorcing less. Yay! And millennials have driven the overall US divorce rate down. Yay! Because they are waiting longer and they're choosing more carefully and they're entering marriage with more resources and a lot of intentionality. And that's just great. That's just beautiful. I love that. So the data tells an interesting story. Boomers married young and divorced a lot. Millennials are marrying less, but those who do marry are likely to stay married. And then Gen Z is on track to have the lowest marriage rates we've ever recorded. So the question is not whether people are choosing commitment carefully. It's whether they're losing access to it entirely. So a quarter of American 40-year-olds have never been married, compared to 6% in the 1980s. That's from Pew Research. The Institute for Family Studies estimates roughly 1 in 3 of today's young adults will never marry and never have children. That's wild. That's wild. Because 83% of Gen Z and millennials still want to get married. Why is it not happening? Why won't it be happening? That's terrible. And I'll tell you why. They have stopped believing that it's actually available to them. They've been through enough situationships. They've watched enough almost relationships dissolve. They've been left enough times without explanation, ghosted, betrayed, heartbroken, that they've just quietly filed lasting love under things that must have happened to other people or people of the past. And that's not really something we want as part of a dating trend. That's just a lot of grief. And a society that is grief-stricken is not going to be a powerful society or a successful one. Wanting love is not a malfunction of your humanity. It is your humanity. It's quite literally, I feel what we're here to do. And that's just my personal belief. But love is a hell of a drug. Yes, it can hurt when you lose it, but there's just nothing more powerful than it. It can heal societies. It can make miracles. It can move mountains in my mind. It's not a deficiency you have. And so just stop the situationship jargon.
Stop.
And let's get back out to loving each other, okay? Committing, okay? Because I hate this. I hate it. I hate the situationship. I'm so done with it. I will not. Okay? Now, lastly, you might be wondering, am I in a situationship? I think you might know, but let's go through some red flags that come up early in a relationship that someone might be telling you they want a commitment, but when you see these, they probably don't, okay? Number 1, they don't usually initiate. They just respond. Okay, you are always the one reaching. You're always the one who wants to see them again before they want to see you. They're always the one deciding whether or not this fits into their schedule. And you're always the one accommodating. Okay, that's a situationship. You get some stupid version of,
I just want us to take our time and get to know each other. I just don't want to jump so fast into a commitment and mess this up. I really like to become friends first, really form a bond first before we make it official. Yeah.
No, they don't. They don't want to take their time getting to know you. They want to remain available to be able to get to know other people while they're getting to know you and keep rotating you out against other candidates. They have you on some sick form of The Bachelor or Bachelorette and that you don't know you're on, and they just keep like, weighing you against other contestants. That's what they want to do. If it gets deflected away from, like they just laugh it off and they just make a joke and they don't want to talk about it, you're in a situationship for sure. If they get mad at you for asking things like that, they tell you you're being crazy, you're being clingy, you're being really weird, you're moving too fast, you're making them uncomfortable. Those are all defensive responses, okay? Garbage, throw it away. Number 3, you exist in their private life, but not their public one. This is really straightforward, okay? They don't introduce you to people. They don't want to bring you anywhere. They only want to see you at night in the house. They don't take you out. They don't tell anybody about you. Like, that's not your man. That's not your woman, okay? This one's really important. Number 4, intimacy spikes. It's like passionate and like love, like through the roof. That's just like crazy chemistry at the very beginning. Then it like nearly disappears at about 2 or 3 months in. You might get periods of like real warmth and connection sometimes. Then it's just followed immediately by just unexplained distance and breadcrumbing and avoidance. And you're just like, what the hell is going on? Why are you doing that? And you will rack your brain trying to resolve that confusion and get them to answer, but they won't give you any answers. They will just tell you that they're working a lot or they've been tired and you're tripping out and all that crap. They talk about their future like you're not in it. Like they talk about something that they're going to go do or something that's like definitely not going to be including you. Number 6, this one hurts a lot and is very important to notice. You feel like you have to earn basic consistency, consideration, communication, common decency. And when you bring up how that's not what you're being given, they shame you or they guilt trip you or they tell you you're being too much. They run away from your feelings. They make you feel like your feelings are going to make them pull away, and they condition you to not speak up about your feelings. They tell you don't deserve these things, or they at least make you feel like that. Their attention and their time and their warmth, none of it feels like just a given that you can just reach for when you want it. But anytime they reach, you're there. Everything feels conditional on their end. And you're just like constantly, subtly adjusting yourself to keep fitting in there. But you don't quite ever fit. It's never very impressive to them. Meanwhile, they're doing jack nothing. Number 7, your intuition keeps asking a question that your heart doesn't want to know the answer to. That's the whole thing, babes. All right, you get to a point where you want to hold on to them so tightly. You don't want to lose them, so you don't want to know the answer to the question, but you already know it. Let me just tell you, like they don't end well. They never end with like you like turning it around. You're just dragging it out. Listen, just because our generation has fallen into this lackadaisical, ridiculous acceptance of like non-committal people, you don't have to adhere to it. There's plenty of people that still want a committed relationship. A lot of people actually. So go for what you want. Stand your ground and don't accept things until they are what you want. You might have learned the hard way a few times and it got knocked down and you feel like crap and you feel like your dignity's gone and you're ashamed. Hi, me too. I've been there. I've done this. I've ugh. I don't even want to say. It's been horrible. Totally fallen into that. Okay? Totally stuck around so long for something that was like really never anything. I just made it this thing in my head what it was in the beginning. And it wasn't that anymore. And it hadn't been for a long time. And it just wasted my life. And it made me sick. Physically, emotionally, all of it. All right? So look at me right now. If you are in something like this, you don't need them. You will survive without them. And you can do better than them.
And that's on period.
So let's band together right now. And we're going to walk away from that terrorist of love, okay? We're going to walk away from them. They're little sociopaths. They're not. I'm sorry. But they're running amok, okay? We're going to just like put them over there and we're going to leave, okay? Yes. Yes. Let's do it. All right? I love you and I'll see you soon.
Girl, you looking good. Won't you back that ass up? You're so fine, little mama. Won't you back that ass